Every story appears ordinary until you see the core side of it.
And what you're looking for is the story behind the news.
We bring it to you from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
A very good evening to you. Welcome to CoreTV Primetime News. I am Omotayo Alo. In our top stories tonight. And good to have you join us tonight. Now the news in full. The suicide bomb attack that occurred at a mosque in Malai Umarari village Tuesday morning has left no fewer than 22 persons dead. The blast, which occurred during early morning prayers, was said to have been carried out by two female suicide bombers. One bomber blew herself up inside the mosque and the second did so outside as survivors of the first blast tried to flee. President Buhari has condemned the attack, describing it as senseless, godless, and un-Islamic. He stated this while commiserating with families of victims of the terrorist attack in Umarari village near Maiduguri, Borno State. State House correspondent Abiola Oluwole completes the story.
The president says the condemnable and reprehensible attack on a place of worship by perpetrators who pretended to be worshippers has once again exposed them as mere criminals who have no place among civilized people. President Buhari expressed his deepest sympathy and condolence to families of the victims and to government and people of Borno State. The president, who also wished speedy recovery to those injured, also commended the security agencies and caregivers for their prompt deployment to the area. He reaffirmed that those who perpetrate, finance, organize, and sponsor this reprehensible act of terrorism will not escape punishment. He, however, implored Nigerians to continue to remain vigilant to the antics of those lawless individuals and cooperate with relevant government agencies in a bid to resolve and defeat the enemy. From the presidential villa in Abuja, Abiola Oluwole reporting for CoreTV News.
The Senate is assuring Nigerians that the 2016 appropriation bill on Thursday, 17th March, as promised, will be passed. Spokesman for the Senate, Saudu Abdullahi, says all relevant committees have completed their various assignments of putting together the final copy for passage. Correspondent Jamil Afagwa completes the story.
Speaking with Senate correspondents after plenary, the Senate spokesman says the final copy of the draft will be laid Thursday at plenary.
I want to assure Nigerians that tomorrow 17th, the 2016 budget will be laid in the Senate chamber as we have promised Nigerians. And of course, with that, the one or two other processes that will take place will surely ensure that we have our budget in time as we have promised.
This is not the first time since the budget was proposed by President Muhammadu Buhari that the Senate is talking about passing it. The deadline was moved to the new date to give the National Assembly enough time to do a thorough job of presenting Nigerians with a worthy document.
I want to assure Nigerians that we are not unmindful of the fact that when we set this date, we want to give Nigerians a budget that is acceptable, that is implementable, and that we actually drive the key policies of this government with respect to the change agenda.
All that is expected now, as the budget is soon to be passed into law, is that government will get its act together and begin to work with putting the country back on a path of development. Jamila Fegwa, CoreTV News, Abuja.
As the drive towards a sustainable and uninterrupted power supply continues, The International Atomic Energy Agency says it is ready to assist Nigeria in achieving its energy needs. Director General of the agency, Yukoi Amano, stated this in Abuja on a visit to the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola. Correspondent Kozim Kasali has more.
The Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency says atomic energy is an important source of energy, especially in the developed world, and that countries like Nigeria can also key in to achieve sustainable energy for its people. He added that the agency will be ready to partner the country in this quest.
Really had the opportunity of visiting the laboratory, meeting with the President of the Senate and with the ministers in charge. So I am very confident that this visit will be a very good occasion to further strengthen the cooperation between your country, Nigeria, and the IAEA.
For his part, the Minister of Power, Works and Housing says nuclear energy is an important source of power. He says what is needed is for the government to do more of educating Nigerians on the benefits of nuclear energy.
I think people are scared normally of things they don't understand. We must begin to break down complex things into very simple and understandable language so that our people can follow us.
The minister says the capacity in the nation's university also needs publicity so that people can be more receptive to the idea. Kozim Kasali, CoreTV News, Abuja.
The Minister of Solid Minerals and Steel Development, Kaide Fayemi, is urging Nigerians to be patient as the federal government prepares to formalize the activities of artisanal and small-scale miners in the country in order to ensure sustainable development of mineral resources and also enhance the sector to contribute to national economic growth. Rashid has details from Kwara, Ilorin State Capital. We'll bring you details of that report later. Moving on, economic diversification is the main thrust in the mind of the mover of the bill that sought to establish a School of Mines and Geological Studies in the country. Peter Patterson from Edo State made the submission while presenting the bill that seeks to establish the school for second reading. Our National Assembly correspondent Emmanuel A. Jenner reports.
The need for the establishment of a School of Mines and Geology Studies to help in the training and exploration of solid minerals in the country, which will ultimately lead to the diversification of the country's economy from a mono-economy, was the aim of the mover of the motion. He's also stating that the large quantity of mineral deposits and the fact that schools across the country come to Akoko Edo for research purposes informed his proposal for the siting of the school close to its source.
There is need for us to establish a specialized school like a monotechnic that will focus on the training of manpower specifically for this industry.
Other lawmakers also supported the bill as timely, coming when the nation is experiencing a downturn in crude oil prices and need to diversify as a way of saving the nation's economy. The school is expected to enable the emergence of skilled and experienced miners who will ultimately replace quacks who have been actively involved in the exploration of solid mineral activities.
I need to commend my honorable colleague Apata saying that the joining of 1,000 mines starts with the first step, and I agree that you have taken the first step. The first step you seek is specialization, and I believe that the government today should look clearly into these proposals so that we can set up a system.
It is time for us to diversify. However, in this diversification, we find that the mining sector is filled with a lot of quackery. And so it is open to a lot of people who have scant, if any, knowledge of the exact qualities that lie in the earth and are able to prospect for these qualities.
I think there's a more perfect, more neutral state that is neither here, not south, not west, but in the central and used to be the capital. I think that should be brought to Lagos State. So I think in all of that, all the submissions, because we do say that Lagos State belongs to everybody, is no man's land.
The motion is being referred to the Committee on Solid Mineral Development for further legislative input.
The Vice President, Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, Ipman Abubakar Dankigari, has expressed regret at the refusal of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) to load members of the association struck at the depot in the last 5 days. Dakin Gari stated that Ipman tickets worth over 5 billion naira were pending, yet the corporation refused to load their trucks at the depot, but instead preferred to load retail outlets and major marketers that lift their product on credit. He also added that complaints have been made to NNPC, but nothing has been done yet. A major reason is convinced the scarcity may still linger. Motorists in Kaduna continue to spend nights on ending as scarcity of petroleum products persist. Long queues still adorn filling stations in the state capital as petroleum product remains unavailable. A tour of few stations within the metropolis revealed that only few stations are selling, while others are still on the lock and key. Our correspondent monitored the situation and reports that most of the stations are not dispensing the product.
Commuters continue to groan over fuel scarcity, as some say they have to go through a lot of difficulty and still be without hopes of getting the product. This development has also resulted to a hike in transport fare and other commodities.
Since yesterday, I did for fuel. I sleep for a queue. Since yesterday, I still did for that fuel. Transport now no problem. Since this regime, we never enjoyed the fuel.
Look at, I slept here yesterday. Look at my colleague over here. We slept here, mosquitoes, everything. And we say changes. We need the changes. Not to say changes and it's not working. Please, the government should look through it. We the poor masses are suffering. We the poor masses are suffering. This first crisis is getting worse, the worse, the more.
It's very, very hard. Very, very, very hard. We're really suffering. And I don't know what the government is doing about the whole situation of the fuel scarcity. But it's really biting hard on us.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation says the products will be made available as soon as possible. But the hardships currently being experienced by commuters is hitting harder as the situation persists.
We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we'll bring you more stories. Do stay with us.
Mommy, more. Where would I be without you? Now you be my best friend. Now you be my sister. Now you be my mentor, and you are still my mama. Mama na kay nakatay. Kibani doya de wake. Mama no lazy. You help me reach my peak in mama. Now you wash my infant head. Oh, everything for you I go do, mama.
Show your sweet and caring mother how much she means to you. Celebrate her with the special Peak Packs. Peak, it's in you.
Join the Airtel family today and get 5 times the value of every recharge. Recharge with *555 *PIN# on the Airtel network and feel at home. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Good to have you join us again. You're still watching CoreTV Primetime News. A quick reminder of our major stories. For more news and information, do visit our social media platform, facebook.com/CoreTV News, our Twitter handle @CoreTV News NG. You could get more on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CoreTV, Liverspace and News. Moving on, Nigerians have been urged to explore the abundance available in the country's non-oil sector. Stakeholders in economic development at a forum in Lagos, while enumerating different exportable items, agree that now that oil is not bringing in enough revenue as expected, options abound as to what can make the nation's Africa's largest economy. Akin Obake has more.
Nigeria is a country blessed with mineral resources, crude oil as well as arable land. However, the discovery of crude oil in commercial quantity in 1956 and the oil boom in 1973 created a heavy reliance on the oil sector at the detriment of the non-oil sector. In the face of current economic downturn, experts are calling on return to developing capacities to harness other resources for productivity.
Nigeria is very richly blessed. I think if we compare ourselves to our neighbors and to the rest of the world, I throw a challenge to us today to identify up to 5 countries that have more in terms of resources than Nigeria does.
No doubt, the federal government needs to rework policies to encourage exports of made-in-Nigeria goods and services.
Government understands the huge magnitude of infrastructural deficit in the country and recognizes the urgent need for efficient infrastructure to support diversification and economic growth.
With better focus on the fallow areas of the economy and more support for small and medium-scale enterprises, it is projected that Nigeria will in no distant future boast of immeasurable economic growth. Akin Obake, CoreTV News, Lagos.
Not only have different firms identified faulty policies as a source of setback for locally made goods and services, industrialists also clamor for a change in Nigeria's mentality towards appreciating indigenous goods as experts enjoin more support for government on patronage. Sarah Ayiku has more.
From beads to foodstuff to building materials, many more items are produced for export purposes daily, reflecting that Nigerians are paying a closer attention to locally made goods. Despite measured enthusiasm, however, there are still concerns.
The manufacturing sector have a lot of challenges. They have infrastructural challenges. Even the machineries they use in producing, some of them are very obsolete. We need modern machineries that will retool these factories to produce more and at a competitive rate.
But maybe Nigerians are yet to fully appreciate what they themselves produce back home.
I've not been taught to be proud of what we produce. And it's a mindset thing. No matter how good it is, they will always fault it.
I don't know of any country in the world that has a population that's as intelligent as Nigerians, who can do without. There's nothing they cannot compose or manufacture or fabricate, if you like.
Charity, they say, begins at home. One of the problems identified facing made in Nigeria goods is perception. Nigerians are enjoined to change their mindset and promote made in Nigeria goods. Sarah Ayeku, CoreTV News, Lagos.
The reaction of Nigerians to the change mantra of the APC-led government is beginning to mimic that of dissatisfaction from different corners of the country. Some bewail the unavailability of power supply, others express sadness over the price of goods and services. Fadikemi Oluwadare files on this report presented from our studio. Scrutiny of President Buhari's administration has once again been put on the front burner, as many lament recent austerity measures put in place by the government to curb the perceived maladministration of the Jonathan era. Analysts in our flagship program, Core Digest, also have this to say.
We ourselves, we need to take this thing in our hands. Each family needs to wake up to the task that when I start producing, when I start the small agricultural farm in my own house, that's when things will start changing.
Furthermore, Shijibomi Adebayo, who looked at things from nearly the same perspective, never hesitated to bear his mind and examine other areas the government can generate revenue.
Now, why can't states come together and say, South refinery, the 6 states. Number one, you get employment for your people. Number two, you make sure that your zone has enough petrol or fuel to service their machineries and cars. Number three, you make money.
Those who called in on the program also expressed their opinions.
Everybody has to cry for the change that we have made. But since all this while, things, the government did not even say it for we to know whether how the change will be good or not.
I think what we should do for the present administration, especially Mr. President, is to kneel down as we Christians and pray for the man, because he is on the right path. We are aware that a lot of things happened in the last government.
Inasmuch as many Nigerians are hopeful that the change administration will bring absolute cure to their challenges, one will expect that we understand that this change begins with us. Civil society organizations in Plateau State are tasking the state government on implementing programs that will be beneficial to the people. They say it is not enough to have an agenda or a program as a government, but that it is equally important to have them fully implemented. The seeming redundancy of the Simeon Lalong administration is said to have led to the agitation of the CSOs. Our correspondent has more.
The leader of the CSOs, Lantana Abdullahi, at the meeting with Plateau State government officials, said little can be said to have been implemented as a program or an agenda for the present administration in the state since coming into office. She's calling on members of the State Executive Council to carry along members of the private sector and CSOs during planning and implementation of programs.
Here we are trying to get the government again on the table to tell us their plans of rolling out. It's not enough to have a plan, but we have to know what are the implementation strategies and how all of us as stakeholders can also contribute towards the achievement of those plans.
The director in charge of Cabinet Affairs, Narman Kwarban, responded by saying that the dire situation in the country is making it mandatory for the state government to require help from anywhere it can get it. He's calling on the CSOs to become partners with the state government.
And every one of us will be able to know the role that is expected of him or her in the actualization of the 5 pillar policies. It's not going to be a one-man thing. It's not going to be government alone.
Director of Research in the Cabinet, John Wada, says a review of programs and the agenda of the state government would be done, and that the CSOs would be needed in the process. He called on them to become partners in progress for the benefit of Plateau State.
You, seated here, that can play a very critical role in helping them. Even though the laws are very loose, very weak, you and I cannot play a significant role in achieving this if we don't review some of these things. But if you do that, Plateau State will be better off.
Since the inception of the Simon Lalong administration, policy direction has been seen to be lacking as workers in the state are still being owed their salaries.
And now to the fight against corruption, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has refused an application by the former Chief of Defense Staff, Alex Bade, seeking to step for the hearing on the 10-count criminal charge of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. At the resumed sitting on the matter, Bade, through his lawyer Samuel Zibiri, challenged the jurisdiction of the court to try him on the basis of the charge, which it says was grossly defective. In his application dated March 15, Bade argued that the charge did not disclose any offense known to Money Laundering Act, insisting that the charge lacked legal validity. Relying on Section 220 of the Administration of the Criminal Justice Act 2015, the former military chief urged the court to hear and determine the application first before delving into full-blown hearing of the substantive charge against him. However, EFCC lawyer Rotimi Jacobs urged the court to disregard the application, saying it was a deliberate ploy by the defendant to stall the commencement of his trial. Trial judge Okon Abang in the end refused to bar this application, saying there are laid down procedures for such criminal cases. The menace of fake, adulterated, counterfeit or substandard drugs, non-compliance with dosage as prescription by medical practitioners, and self-medication has been a major issue in the country. And the Consumers Protection Council is advising against such practices, as this will help save lives. This year's World Consumer Rights Day has its theme, Consumer Beware. Antibiotic resistance can kill, as reported by Bukola Afeni from our studio.
The Director General of the Consumer Protection Council, Modukbe Atoki, speaking with newsmen, urged consumers to refrain from self-medication and adhere strictly to prescriptions and ensure completion of their dosages. She says antibiotic resistance impedes the consumer's right to health and safety.
All the relevant agencies, and with that we are going to be able to work with them as to how to advocate and sensitize consumers about the use of antibiotics.
Noting also that complaints are pouring into the council about electricity bills, the DG says the council is mindful of trending concerns of consumers in the power sector and adds that consumers who have not been metered have a right to contest a bill and opt to pay the last undisputed bill.
The council, working with the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commissioner, has resolved to enforce the mandatory 60-day timeline to electricity distributor companies to meter consumers who elect to procure under the credit advance payment for metering, usually referred to as CAPME.
The DG says the council is making an impact in the satellite television sector, which is operating a standard rate system as against a pay-per-view system. Nigerians who subscribe on the satellite television broadcast can now watch popular football channels in their homes owing to the interventions from the council.
90 days is for them to be able to rearrange their program. Some of them needs for them to get another kind of system, technological system. They may need to do that.
The Consumer Protection Council was set up to protect the rights of Nigerian consumers with vigor, and it is beginning to move in that direction, helping to dispense with complaints reaching them.
A valedictory court session has been held in honor of late Minister of State for Labour, Employment and Productivity, James Ocholi, who died in a ghastly motor accident alongside his wife and son. Many senior advocates of Nigeria who spoke at the National Industrial Court in Abuja, venue of the event, paid glowing tribute to the late minister. Judiciary correspondent Basil Okafor files in this report presented from our studio.
They all gathered here in their ceremonial attire to pay their last respects to their departed colleague. In their various tributes, James Ocholi was an illustrious and a distinguished legal icon who contributed to the achievement and advancement of the legal jurisprudence in the country. It was also said that the late Ocholi was conferred with the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria in December 2012 due to his dint of hard work, excellence and discipline.
Mr. Ocholi was a simple, decent, humble man, a legal luminary, and an illustrious son of Kogi State, who brought to bear on his job clinical efficiency and humility.
We must thank God for the life he lived. His life was a gift to the legal profession. His life was a gift to Nigeria, and indeed a gift to humanity. He inculcated the core values of discipline, love and tolerance.
The late Ocholi, among his colleagues here, was a detribalized Nigerian who ventured into politics and made a great impact. In their opinion, Ocholi did not die, but slept because his good deeds live after him and will remain for many years to come.
Mr. Ocholi was a shining example of what a lawyer can do in politics. Every now and then we are called upon as lawyers to make our contribution to national politics, to add value, not to stand aside. Mr. Ocholi was a shining example of that person who took that opportunity.
The late minister was born on November 26, 1960 and hails from Ida in the Kina local government area of Kogi State.
Senate President, or rather President of the Senate, Bukola Saraki, is sworn in Senator Mao Onwa-Bunwa, the senator representing Abia North Senatorial Zone. Onwa-Bunwa's swearing in is sequel to his victory in the March 12 rerun election for Abia North Senatorial District, where he contested on the platform of the People's Democratic Party against former Abia State Governor Orji Uzokalu of the Progressive People's Congress, PPA, and others. The President of the Senate, while performing the rite, congratulated Onwa-Bunwa on his victory at the rerun poll, just as he urged him to settle down to provide quality legislation not only to the people of his constituency, but also Nigeria in general. The women wing of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, has urged their counterparts all over the world, especially in Nigeria, to speak against violence and inequality. Speaking on behalf of the group at an event marking the International Women's Week, its chairperson, Julie Abikoye, reiterates the importance of women and the roles they play. Victoria Solomon files on this report presented from our studio.
International Women's Week is celebrated all over the world between March 8 and 15. This year's theme, Pledge for Parity, has inspired women within the labor union to take action against gender inequality. Kenny Odeleye, member of the House of Representatives from Ijebu Northeast, Federal Constituency of Ogun State, shares his view on womanhood.
Women should come forward, take their position, and ensure that they are not pushed back, and let them make their voices to be heard, and let them also make the men to realize that they can also do it better.
The chairperson of the National Labour Congress Women Committee in Lagos State also enjoins women to make their voices heard.
The government should please arise to help women in Nigeria. Women, we are crying. The Nigeria government, we are begging. All the state governors, please wake up to this challenge.
Also celebrating the achievement of women is the chairman of the Nigerian Union of Teachers in Lagos State, Shegun Rahim.
The change we are expecting from our women is proactive participation in everything, showcasing what they have, their worth, and putting in place their own contribution to make sure that Nigeria change.
International Women's Week aims at honoring women and achievement globally.
We'll take another break now, and when we return, we'll bring you stories from outside Nigeria and sport. Do stay with us.
Join the Airtel family today and get 5 times the value of every recharge. Recharge with *555 *PIN# on the Airtel network and feel at home. Airtel, the smartphone network.
CoreTV News now live on all Androids.
Welcome to CoreTV Primetime News.
Download CoreTV News app from your Play Store. Click on the menu to see all our top stories from politics, sports, business, foreign news and live TV to watch us live on your mobile.
I want to know why I should be believing them.
You can also click on video to see all our YouTube videos. CoreTV News, a 24-hour news station.
Good to have you back on the foreign scene now. A terrorist suspect shot dead in a raid in Brazil's suburb on Tuesday has been identified as Algerian national Mohamed Belkacid. Belkacid was killed by snipers while trying to fire at police from an apartment window in the suburbs of a forest. Meanwhile, 4 officers were wounded in the raid, and the police are still hunting for 2 suspects who were in the apartment. The raid is linked to an investigation into the jihadist attacks in Paris that killed 130 people last November. Away from that, President Barack Obama has nominated veteran appeal court judge Merrick Garland as the next Supreme Court justice. The Supreme Court vacancy comes as a result of the veto of Antonin Scalia last month. Announcing the nomination in the White House Rose Garden, Obama praised Garland's decency, integrity, and even-handedness during his long career in public service, and described him as an exemplary judge. Meanwhile, Garland is viewed as a moderate and has won praises even from some senior Republican figures. Both the appointment has to be ratified by the Senate, and its Republican majority is vowed to block a vote on any Supreme Court nominee from Obama. However, Republicans have called on the president to leave the nomination to his successor, who will be elected in November. Syrian government representatives rules out starting direct negotiations with the opposition as UN-backed peace talks enter a third day in Geneva. Before now, opposition leaders say they were ready to meet face-to-face. The chief government negotiator Bashar al-Jafari rejected the idea, calling his opposition counterpart a terrorist. Meanwhile, Syria's main Kurdish party, which has not been invited to Geneva, plans to declare a federal system of administration in the country's north. Officials from the Democratic Union Party, whose YPG militia controls a 400-kilometer stretch of contiguous territory along the Turkish border, say the system would include representation for all ethnic groups living there. Kurdish-controlled areas of northern Syria are expected to declare a federal system immediately as peace negotiations continue to hold in Geneva about how to end the country's 5-year war. The step, which would combine 3 Kurdish-led autonomous areas of northern Syria into a federal system, is sure to alarm neighboring Turkey, which fears growing Kurdish power in Syria is fueling separatism among its own Kurdish minority. Idris Nasser, a Syrian Kurdish official and former leader in the Syrian Kurdish party, says the announcement would mean widening the framework of self-administration across southern Syria. And now to the world of sports.
Our style, and that's what he delivered.
In sports now, Newcastle midfielder Moso Sissoko says Rafael Benitez's decision to accept the club's offer to become their new manager raised a few eyebrows in the relegation-threatened Premier League's club's dressing room. The Spaniard, who replaced Steve Marklin on Friday, has won the Champions League, Europa League and 2 La Liga titles, and Sissoko says Newcastle's player is surprised he chose to join a team sitting second bottom of the standings. Newcastle, after losing 1-0 at leaders Leicester City in Benitez's first game in charge on Monday, faced Sunderland in Tarn Derby on Sunday. Away from that, Manchester United manager Louis van Gaal has told his players and the club's supporters to believe they can successfully fight back from 2-0 down to knock Liverpool out of the Europa League and reach the quarter-finals. United were outplayed by their arch-rivals in the last week's last 16 first-leg clash at Anfield, giving them an uphill battle to keep alive their hopes of winning the competition and qualify for next season's Champions League. But Van Gaal insists the lead is not insurmountable and hopes to repel United fans for a season of frustration at Old Trafford on Thursday as the Dutchman prepares for his 150th game as a manager in European competition. And still in sport, CSKA Moscow striker Aaron Samu says Nigeria will get the goals to sink Egypt because the Super Eagles have bigger stars than the Pharaohs. Samu, who previously played in China, scored 2 brilliant goals for the Super Eagles in the 2015 Cup of Nations qualifying race against Sudan in Abuja and against Congo in Porto. Nigeria will host Egypt at the Ahmadu Bello Stadium in Kaduna on Friday, March 25th, and both teams will clash again 4 days later at the Bogue Al Arab Stadium in Alexandria. And also in sport, British #1 Jonah Konta is out of the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells following a 7-6, 3-6, 6-3 defeat by world #19 Karolina Pliskova. Victory over a Czech opponent would have put Konta in with a chance of breaking into the top 20 of the world rankings for the first time. Two-time champion Serena Williams defeated Katrina Bonderico 6-2, 6-2 to end a quarter-final with Simona Halep. Meanwhile, in the men's game, Novak Djokovic reached the last 16 of the men's singles with a 7-5, 7-5 win over German Felipe Koscriber, while Rafael Nadal beat fellow Spaniard Fernando Verdasco 6-0 and 7-6. And just before we go tonight, a quick reminder of our top stories. On behalf of our entire news crew, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. I am Omotayo Alo. Do well to join us for our midnight update at 12. Bye for now.